With the surveys complete, dismantling of the Matsuyama Castle Ninomaru stone wall begins. To repair the wall, all the stones in the section being restored must be removed. For this, a thorough understanding of stone wall structure is essential. Let us explain the typical structure of castle stone walls. First, the terminology. The visible surface of a stone is called sura, the inner end is tomo. In all stacking methods, sura is larger than tomo. The length of the stone is called hikai. The longer it is, the more stable the wall. Beneath the tomo, a large stone called kai-ishi, foundation stone, is placed to support the stone above. This kai-ishi determines the slope of the wall. Behind the stones, gaps are tightly filled with small stones called garishi, backfill. This reduces earth pressure and improves drainage. Behind the backfill lies either earthfill or natural ground. Stones are stacked not only above ground, but also below ground. Large neishi, base stones, are placed first, then the stones are stacked above them. In moats, wooden piles were driven, beams laid, and base stones placed on top to prevent settling. Now, let us see the dismantling process in action. If there are structures on top of the wall, these are dismantled first, before stonemasons begin their work. The removal of earthfill begins. The extent of earth to be removed is determined in advance, during the design stage. At the same time, the backfill, garishi, is also removed. Although machines such as excavators are often used, handwork is preferred to avoid damaging the stones. This is because all original materials are reused during reconstruction. The removed backfill is stored separately from the earthfill. Matsuyama Castle's Ninomaru stone wall uses the kirikomi-hagi method, and small stones called mazu-meishi are inserted between larger stones. These must be removed before dismantling the main stones. Since they bear little weight, they are removed as the main stones are lifted. These mazu-meishi are also stored for reuse. After clearing the backfill, the dismantling of the main stones begins. In the past, this was done entirely by hand, but now cranes are used. Attaching wires to lift the stones is called tamakake. Wires must not be placed across the stone's surface. After slightly lifting the stone, the bottom is checked for safety. If debris is caught in the wire, it could slip off. The wire must be attached at the stone's center of gravity. Sometimes the wire needs to be adjusted to achieve this. The wire is then tightened to prevent loosening. This ensures the stone will not fall during transport. All dismantled stones are handled with utmost care. Before moving stones to the storage area, they are washed. Stones are often covered in soil and moss, which are removed with high-pressure water. Thus, dismantling proceeds through careful, thorough steps. At the stone yard, all stones are arranged and stored in order. A large area is needed for storing every stone. Stones are neatly placed after cleaning. Tape markings may peel off over time, so permanent ink markings are added. These markings are written on the hikai hidden part, not on visible surfaces. While surface measurements were taken before dismantling, hikai length was not. Therefore, after dismantling, these lengths are measured and recorded. This ensures all dimensions, width, height, and depth, are known. Stone condition is also checked again after dismantling, since hidden parts were not previously visible. Based on this, stones are classified as reusable or replaceable. The stone ledger, containing all this information, is the manual for reconstruction. Dimensions are also written on boards and photographed for further record keeping. At the storage site, such meticulous preparation continues. Once dismantling is complete and scaffolding removed, reassembly begins. To rebuild the wall to its original form, guide strings are set according to the restoration plans. These strings guide the placement of stones. This process is called chahari. A sturdy frame is erected to hold these strings in place. The strings replicate the wall's original slope and curvature. They are set a fixed distance from the wall face to act as a reference during reconstruction. The entire restoration site is lined with these guide strings for accuracy. Computer graphics confirm the setup. With this, the stone wall is restored to its original form. Across the water from Matsuyama, near Kure City in Hiroshima, the Seto Inland Sea is seen from Kurahashi Island. The islands of the Seto Inland Sea are rich in quality stone materials. Granite is also quarried from Kurahashi Island. For the restoration of the Matsuyama Castle Ninomaru stone walls, it was decided to use granite from Kurahashi Island, chosen for its similar material and color tone. The granite to be used in the Ninomaru is split into large pieces. Holes are drilled for inserting wedges. small wedges, are used. So a greater number must be applied. The wedge heads are struck with a hammer. Although many machines are used today, the stonemasons at the quarry still perform the laborious work of cutting stone, a task as demanding as that of the masons who set the stones in the walls. The new stone for the Nino-maru wall splits cleanly under the power of the wedges. Granite from Kurahashi Island. These stones will be reborn as part of the Matsuyama Castle Nino-maru stone walls, and will surely endure for centuries to come. Now, let us introduce the different methods of stone masonry. A representative example of nozura-zumi, unshaped stone masonry, is seen at Kochi Castle, where stones of many different sizes are used. This irregular arrangement is called ran-zumi, random stacking. Since unshaped stones are used without cutting in nozura-zumi, horizontal joints cannot be aligned, and the result is often ran-zumi. Hirosaki Castle in Aomori Prefecture, overlooking Mount Iwaki. Sugaru Nobuhira began its construction in 1611. The central section of Hirosaki Castle's tall stone walls was built using a technique in which stones of similar size are aligned to create continuous horizontal joints. This method is called nuno-zumi, coursed masonry. Built during the Kane era, 1624 to 1644, these walls display beautifully ordered layers. In Hikone, Shiga Prefecture, lies Hikone Castle, built in 1622 by Ii Naotaka. To the left of the Tenbin Yagura turret near the main gate, one can see later reconstructed stone walls built in the Tani-zumi style. In Tani-zumi, stones are placed with their diagonal lines set vertically, tilted and wedged in at an angle. This method creates long contact surfaces between adjacent stones, making the structure mechanically stable. It shows the progress of masonry techniques. In Taketa, Oita Prefecture, stands Oka Castle, famous in poetry as the moon over Oka Castle. Construction dates back to 1185, attributed to Ogota Koreyoshi, and it was renowned as an impregnable fortress. Among its later stone walls are examples of kenshizu. In this method, stones shaped into four-sided pyramids are used. Kenshizu became common in the late Edo period, when masonry grew more standardized, with stone size and shape strictly regulated. In 1666, Lord Ikeda Mitsumasa of Bizen founded Shizutani School, the oldest surviving public school in Japan. The stone fence surrounding the school was built with the Bizen-zumi method. Irregularly shaped stones were carefully fitted together with no gaps. Completed between 1664 and 1701, this 2-meter wide and 2-meter high stone fence has stood for 300 years without a single flaw. It represents masonry at its finest. In the second year of restoration, 2003, the stone masonry work on the Matsuyama Castle Ninomaru stone wall began. First, replacement stones were selected to take the place of those old stones judged unusable. The shape of the old stones was traced, and from the granite delivered from Kurahashi Island, suitable matches were chosen. Each chosen stone was compared against the old one for size and shape. The selected new stones were brought to the site and roughly shaped. A guideline was drawn on the surface to indicate where rough cutting would be done. Unlike at the quarry, the cutting method here differed. Wedge holes were drilled in the stone, but these were made much deeper. The wedge holes had to be aligned with the intended splitting direction. Once ready, wedges were inserted. Various types of wedges and chisels were used to split the stone. This tool, called a kogi-ya, nail wedge, is one type. A slender wedge was inserted into the hole, and as it spread apart, it forced the stone to split. The wedge head was struck with a hammer, splitting the stone. This process was repeated, gradually shaping the new stone to match the old one. Skilled stonemasons say that because they split the stone along its natural grain, the work is not as difficult as it appears. The roughly shaped new stones were then lifted by crane into position to replace the unusable old ones. Once set in place, their fit was checked, and excess portions were trimmed at the site. If a great deal needed trimming, wedges were used again. With careful chisel work, the contact points were adjusted until the new stone fit snugly into the wall. When the position was fixed, kai-ishi, foundation stones, were wedged behind the tomo, back end. These determined the angle of the stone's surface, which was checked against the guideline strings. During construction, the fit was verified against measured drawings, design plans, and pre-restoration photographs. The fit was checked both from a distance and close to the wall. Another new stone was then fitted into place. When only a small adjustment was needed, chisels were used. However, only new stones were trimmed. Never the original stones. Once adjusted, the position was fine-tuned with a crowbar. Finally, kai-ishi were wedged firmly at the tomo, securing the stone in its position. Gaps were then filled with small gorishi, backfill stones. Fragments produced when shaping new stones were also used as fillers. These small stones were pressed tightly into the gaps with crowbars, ensuring a compact fill. Lastly, mazumaishi, filler stones, were inserted. Although they do not bear weight, they were hammered in place to prevent shifting. Old or new stones, suitably shaped, were used for mazumaishi. Usable old stones were also returned to their original positions. Kai-ishi were set behind them as temporary supports, and their placement was checked against the measured drawings. When fitted beside new stones, sometimes contact points prevented proper placement. In such cases, only the new stones were trimmed. After trimming, the old stones were reset in the corrected position following the guideline strings. Again, the surface angle was checked, and kai-ishi wedged firmly. Gaps were packed with gorishi, backfill, mazumaishi were inserted, and all joints were stabilized. In this way, the old stones were rebuilt into the wall. After every 1 or 2 layers of stone were rebuilt, the backfill was packed with gorishi. The original backfill, carefully sifted to remove soil, was returned to place. This too was carefully compacted for stability. The rebuilt wall rose steadily. The mazum-ishi were firmly placed. The surfaces aligned with the guideline strings, and the new stones blended naturally with the old. Behind the wall, the gorishi and earth fill were restored. The masonry was rebuilt exactly in line with the construction drawings. The bulging sections seen before restoration had disappeared. The Matsuyama Castle Ninomaru stone wall was splendidly revived. Kochi Castle, famous for its nozura-zumi masonry. Here too, restoration work was carried out. The section being repaired was the wall leading to the Kurogane gate of the main enclosure. The process of restoring unshaped stone walls follows the same steps as for kirikomi-hagi. Stones were reassembled using the photos, reference lines, and alignment marks recorded in the surveys. Once roughly positioned, the stones were temporarily supported with kai-ishi. Because unshaped stones have irregular contact surfaces, the reference lines and alignment marks were especially important. Since the surfaces are uneven, the stones were adjusted by sight to match the slope of the guideline strings. Once the stones were firmly wedged with kai-ishi, the mazumaishi were also set back in place. Thus, the nozura-zumi wall was rebuilt. Next, the backfill was replaced. The small stones were pressed carefully into the gaps around each block. Then the backfill was compacted. The stone masonry techniques developed in the early modern period continue to be preserved even today. The restored nozura-zumi wall conveys a sense of warmth and natural beauty. As long as these walls remain across Japan, the technique of nozura-zumi will continue to be passed down. Sendai, the city of trees, on Aoba Mountain to the west. Date Masamune began building Sendai Castle, also called Aoba Castle, in 1600. On the north wall of the main enclosure, restoration work began in 1997 and lasted 6 years. This project introduced new technology into the restoration process. That technology was the use of computers. Measured drawings and restoration designs were digitized, and all stone data was stored electronically. New stones could then be shaped by machine according to the data. The stone walls of Sendai Castle have collapsed several times due to earthquakes and have been rebuilt repeatedly. Today, the north wall is reconstructed using kirikomi-hagi, finely cut stone masonry. Because this technique involves standardized stone shapes, computer technology is particularly effective. Yet, however advanced technology becomes, verification with measured drawings is still essential. Even when stones are machine cut, small adjustments are always necessary. The stonemasons made these corrections with traditional tools. With kai-ishi firmly wedged, the stones settled into their exact positions. The restoration combined the high-level skills inherited over centuries with modern technology. After the backfill was restored, larger stones were placed at the tomo to prevent shifting. Another innovation at Sendai Castle was marking the new stones. Holes were drilled in the back ends, leaving a sign to indicate which stones were replacements. These marks will serve as a record for future restorations, perhaps centuries from now. The surfaces of new stones were also hand-finished, so that their texture matched the old ones, rather than appearing machine-cut. In this way, the restoration of Sendai Castle's north wall advanced steadily. The corners of a stone wall bear the greatest load and require the greatest care in construction. Around the time kirikomi-hagi was adopted, a method called sangi-zumi appeared. This technique alternates rectangular stones lengthwise and crosswise, creating a strong interlock. Evidence of this was found during restoration at Hirosaki Castle. These tools, called sengiri, notch, were used to keep the stones from separating. Even ancient stonemasons understood the stresses concentrated on the corners. and devised ways to reinforce them. At Sendai Castle's north wall, a 1/10 scale model was made by computer to plan the nozura-zumi restoration. During surveys, the locations of reusable stones and new stones were decided. The new stones were machine cut according to the model dimensions and transported to the site. These new cornerstones were massive, finished almost exactly to size. Requiring only final adjustments on site. Shaped cornerstones of the nozura-zumi were lifted carefully into place by crane. These were much larger than the ordinary face stones. At Sendai Castle, they weighed between 5 and 9 tons each. Setting them in position required the utmost care. Even the smallest adjustments were made with great skill. In the past, before cranes or computers, these walls were built using only simple tools and human strength. The many splendid stone walls, still standing across Japan, are living proof of the high level of skill of those stonemasons. Their expertise has been passed down unbroken to the present, and is demonstrated today in restoration projects nationwide. At Sendai Castle, the nozura-zumi stones were fitted together with no gaps. After 6 years, the restoration of the north wall was completed in 2003, and the majestic figure of Sendai Castle, built by Date Masamune, once again appeared before us. Marugame Castle, famed for its stone walls. Its tall, carefully calculated walls stand firmly interlocked. The high level of stone masonry that developed rapidly during the age of warfare is truly one of Japan's greatest cultural treasures.